This is OverDrive, yes, on TSN 1050, TSN 2, but I am not Brian Hayes. My name is Brennan Dunlop. Happy to fill in for Hayes Noodles and the O-Dog and be alongside Dave Feschuk for this half a week. It's my final day with you, Dave, but you got the rest of the week here. It's been a good week. It's been fun. There's been a lot of different topics to hit on. I kind of like that summer period where you can, talk about other things. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've asked you about a lot of travel. That's still in the back pocket. There's more travel to get in there too.
We had our Gold Cup day. We talked a lot of soccer.
We did
talking too much golf, according to Twitter.
Yeah,
occasionally, but we love golf. What can we do?
That's the thing, right? You can't please the people.
No.
So go back to our previous conversation about athletes on Twitter. You're never going to win all the time. No. You know, maybe you get a couple more endorsements, but then you're going to have a lot of haters to deal with.
That's right.
And it's always a double-edged sword, it seems, right?
It is.
But since you mentioned soccer, I will say that the Gold Cup is continuing despite Canada's exit the other day, having lost to the United States. The United States will play in the semifinal in San Diego, which will be the host city in the stadium, Snapdragon Stadium it's called, will host the 30th MLS team, which probably will be the cap, right? You can't have a soccer league with more than 30. Around the world, it's 20, and they have promotion and relegation. Like, to go beyond 30 just feels like a lot. I know 32 is common in North American sports, and certainly that we have it in hockey. You've got it in baseball. You got it in the
NBA's
NFL.
looking at it.
NBA's looking at it too. They got to put an NBA team in Vegas, right?
They got, I think, two more, right? I think Seattle and Vegas. So the next two come.
Go back to Seattle.
Yeah.
There's not another market you'd like to see in NBA city.
Well, there's plenty of markets. There's plenty of Vancouver's. Got a great case for it.
That's what I think. I think they should go back to Vancouver.
The late, great David Stern said it was maybe his biggest failure as commissioner during his tenure was letting Vancouver fail because it was a home run market. Should have succeeded. Just didn't.
Right. There's two big screw ups, I think, in the NBA's business operation.
Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah. If you can only make up one, I think it's Vancouver.
Yeah.
I think there's more potential. But then again, maybe I just want to see that city be more of a big metropolis than it can be. I think that's the interesting thing. You've worked out there plenty, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's a big city. It is a metropolis. It's an international city. But for some reason, from a sporting perspective, from a media perspective, like it can feel like a big small town.
It does feel pretty small.
Right?
It does feel pretty small at times. But look, the NBA can make it feel a lot bigger. And the NBA is, currently in smaller places.
Yes.
Oklahoma City comes to mind. And so Milwaukee ain't exactly New York City.
San Antonio
is pretty tiny.
They don't have another professional franchise.
Everything's big in Texas, but yeah, no, I think it'd be great to see Vancouver get another crack at it, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I'm pretty sure, like it's almost been telegraphed that they're going Seattle, Vegas, and I think it'll be coming. They say when the new CBA rolls around, or the new broadcasting deal rolls around. The new CBA just got ratified. There'll be a new broadcasting deal in 2025, and then I think after that you'll see 2 more franchises.
Seattle, the easy play. They built the arena. They've had, I think, a lot of success locally with the Kraken. It is a market that they know well. It is a market that, a real sports market where those teams thrive in Seattle.
Got a great basketball history.
It does. And I'm not denying, the people of Seattle the opportunity to have an NBA team they shouldn't have lost in the first place. But, man, I would love to see another Canadian team.
Yeah.
And there's not another city for it. Really?
There are people that make a case that Montreal could handle the team now.
Do you think they could?
Well, look, it's...
In the 90s, I think they could have.
Yeah.
In fact, there should have been 3. There should have been 3 teams coming together. That was the time for it.
It would have been nice. Certainly, when the Raptors go there for exhibition games, they do really well, but that's pretty anecdotal. Montreal is definitely crying out for another team. There's been all that hustle and bustle about bringing back Major League Baseball, which never seems to go anywhere, although people close to that situation insist it'll go somewhere someday.
Yeah, they do. I'm surprised that hasn't died.
Yeah.
The thought that the Major League Baseball will return to Montreal. Because it's when it left, it really left because it was very clear a failure. Yeah. There was a lot of mismanagement. There was, the fans were let down as well. I'm certainly not putting it all on the people.
The building was a white elephant. They never really recovered from the fact that the Big O was a big disaster and wasn't really fit for Major League Baseball and still isn't. So,
but they still use it for events, don't they?
Yeah.
They've got the most out of that place.
They really have.
Like they've just dragged it. It's not always great. I was there for MLS playoff game, TFC and the Montreal Impact at the time, and they delayed it for about 50 minutes because in warm-ups, the Toronto FC players were complaining that the box wasn't like not just regulation size; it wasn't even.
Right.
And to the eye test, you could see it was bigger on the right side than on the left side.
Well, wasn't there like the carpet was basically like coming up?
Carpet, yeah, it's bad.
Just carpet on concrete floor, essentially. It wasn't exactly state of the art artificial turf. Let's say.
Honestly,
it was pretty ugly.
If they could build a stadium there, though, I mean, I know the summers are short in Montreal, but the summers there's ways to do it. The summers are short here. The summers are short in Detroit. The summers are short in Minnesota.
Need a dome. Yeah, well, Minnesota built a stadium that's not a dome, which just made me shake my head. I still don't understand that.
Detroit too, though.
Yeah.
At that time, they were just trying to modernize, have a classic park that was a modern upgrade from Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
I don't think
the Bills are doing it too. I mean, the Bills, they got a team built for a dome, and the Bills are building a non-dome stadium. I know it's economic more than anything. It's not strategic. I think that you add the dome to the bill, and it's like another $1 billion apparently, or something in that range. I don't know.
I've seen quite a few events at Scotiabank Arena. I had been to Maple Leaf Gardens, but I'm sad to say that I never got to see a game there.
Really?
I would have loved to have seen a game at Maple Leaf Gardens when Doug Gilmour was playing for the Leafs. But at least I get to talk to him here on Overdrive. Doug, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, Brandon, Dave, guys, how you doing?
We're doing good. It's great to chat with you, man. It's peak summer season. We're talking a lot of baseball because it was Major League Baseball All-Star break. How does the summer start for you? I know that you were out supporting the Road to Conquer Cancer, which is a great hockey tournament, the Road Hockey to Conquer Cancer event. It's taking place on September 30th, but I know you're working on the build-up to that. This is something that you've participated in for quite a few years now, and is really important to you, I know.
Well, it is, and you know what? I've done a lot of events with Sarah Nurse, but Tyler McGregor, when I first met him, he goes, "You're my favorite player," and if you know anything about his story, and one of the best sledge hockey players in the world right now. So it was great to see him today, and again, this Princess Margaret Road Hockey Concert Cancer, it's over $26 million. And it's very special, guys. And you know what? I don't play ice hockey anymore. I play ball hockey, so it's all good.
At all? You never laced up the skates, not even for a little pond hockey with the kids? Nothing?
You know what? The last time I got called from Calgary. Somebody couldn't make it, and we're playing against Edmonton somewhere in Alberta, and I just turned 60 years old. And I felt like a Bambi. I haven't played in 3 years. I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? So I said, I'll take a couple of face-offs and stuff. And I didn't play that long, but it was fun just to be out there. Like, honestly, I miss it. But put it this way, I just can't get out of the way. So if somebody's coming at me, and again, I don't want to get hurt. That's the last thing I want to do at the stage of my life. And but at the same time, when we do different charities, I do coach, and so get to hang out with everybody and have the draft party, and hopefully go to bed as early as you can. And that's it.
I know this won't make you feel any better, Doug, but I can't get out of the way either, which is why I've never played above men's leagues. I'm playing D League right now in the Adult Safe Hockey League. But I tell you, the summers are special. For some reason, I'm lighting it up, lighting the lamp a lot in the summer. Can't do it in the winter when the best guys are out there in the league, but I'm making the most of it in the summer.
Well, you know what? Enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. Like, enjoy life. And again, what we're doing here with road hockey to cancers. I've done it probably 10 years now, maybe 9 years, and it's such a fun day. And again, I don't run anywhere. I just get the ball past the people and just enjoy the moment.
Yeah, for sure, Dougie. So, Road Hockey to Conquer Cancer, a great cause you've been involved with for a long time. Summer is also the moment of the charity golf circuit, and Grappler was saying you were out with the Joe Carter charity deal. What's your charity golf game like these days?
I love playing in tournaments, best ball, because my game really sucks.
Another thing we got in common.
You know what? I want to play with O-Dog just to piss him off. Because I scramble so much right now, and again, I live up in Burlington, and there's so many great courses around here. And it's a game that, you know what, obviously you got to practice, you got to play a lot, and I don't. And it's something that I'm almost ready to shut it down, but I'm not, because every once in a while you have a good round.
Right. That's the problem. That one good round keeps it coming back, right, Dougie?
Lures you back in.
That 19th hole is beautiful.
Yes.
Dougie, I do want to ask you a couple of Leafs questions. One thing I thought of, and one thing that I like to see now, is I'm in my late 30s. I've just become a father, and I see these sons of legends that were superstar players when I was a kid, and seeing Max Domi come to Toronto. We obviously would have had some interactions with him when he was a kid. We know how important it was for him to play for what feels like the hometown team. He grew up here, watching his dad play. What's going to be like for you to see Max Domi in a Maple Leaf sweater?
Okay, first and foremost, we were at Cottonwood the other day with NHL alumni, and Ty shows up after the golf.
Okay.
When everybody else is exhausted, he wants to talk. So, but honestly, I'm so excited for Max to be here. Hang on, guys, 1 second. Sorry.
We get dog problems.
The dog wants into the conversation too. Mine's the same. Every time I've done like some serious Zoom, my German Shepherd is barking at a squirrel running across the front. I got you, man. All good.
Okay, it's all good. You know what? Again, guys, Brad coming in here, it's, who knew what a great job he did last year. Okay, I know the team didn't succeed, but when a couple guys walked in, it's something that, for Bertuzzi to take a 1-year deal to bet on himself, that's character. Mm-hmm. And I know your host, not the host, but your guest about character. Well, character goes a long way in the dressing room for a lot of people. And for Max to sign for 1 year, this is awesome. And again, yes, there's pieces that you're going to have to fill in. I get it. But this is a character team. And when I say that, guys, it's like when I came in here in 1992-93, first season, and Krushelinski, Foligno, Bob Rouse, Jamie McCann, like the list goes on. And then obviously our captain, Wendell. All I can say is when it doesn't work, sometimes try something else. But character goes a long way, man, in that dressing room, on the ice. And as I say that, certain times people take liberties on certain people, and more in our days than now, but it's good to have some people there. And I'll tell you a real quick story. In 1993-94, playing against Vancouver for 2 periods in the first game round, won against Vancouver. Gino Ojic's all over me every shift for 2 periods. And whatever you can do to me to piss me off. And the start of the 3rd period, we're out there, and Wendell goes to Pavel Bure. He says, "Hey, if Gino touches Doug one more time, I'm going to knock you out." So there's the character.
Yeah.
Of the team.
I like it. Hey, Dougie, I was going to ask you on that vein, the game has changed a lot since you and Wendell were beloved Maple Leafs, but the Leafs brought in a guy that has that intimidation factor in Ryan Reeves. I'm wondering, watching as much as you watch, I know you're not like watching every minute, but
I watch every game.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, you're watching every game. My bad.
I'm a big fan.
My bad.
Like of every game. My favorite sport's baseball because my dad was a ball player, so we'll just go through that process. But no, I love hockey. There's nothing better, like, again, at my stage of my life, just to watch the games. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed at 10 o'clock or 10:30, but at the same time, it's that's how you kind of keep involved in the game. And again, I work for the Leafs a little bit as ambassador, and it's something that, you know what, we all want to see them succeed. That's the biggest thing. And as far as, you know what, I was watching earlier, guys, the media side.
Yeah.
You want, yes, it was different because no cell phones and picture phones, whatever. But we were a very close group. The difference is, too, we didn't charter. We stayed overnight. So we got to bond with everybody. And that's one of the biggest things. So I just hope they have the good parties and, you know, as internally and not with cameras or anything else. And just really enjoy each other. And you'll more important, you love it when you succeed.
Yeah, well said, Doug. Mentioning the cameras, I'm wondering the All or Nothing series that Amazon did on the Leafs. I know you've watched that. I know you've spoken about it before. But have you thought what it would be like, and maybe what season you would have liked to have the cameras, and what season you would have hated to have the cameras in the room when you were playing?
I never wanted cameras, no matter what.
Yeah,
guys, like our routine. You know what? My first full year in there, I was single, and it was like I lived 15 feet from the Gardens.
Wow,
on Wood Street.
Right.
And Felix Bodman lived there. Different. It was just a rental, and it was like, I know my parents are coming in on the weekend. Saturday night, 8:00. It's like, okay, get home, like walk out, go upstairs, change my jeans on, and go over to PM Toronto's in the back door, and have the opportunity to, again, don't forget the bars close at 1. So we'd do that. You know, like single guys like Dave Wendell and Dave McElligott and et cetera. It's like, so we got to hang together, and then, you know what, Monday nights we're at Phoenix, and then sometimes Wednesdays we're at the Loose Moose. And again, we didn't stay out late, but it was such, like, it was fun. And the energy downtown at that time, because the Blue Jays were winning too, I don't know. I get chills back and looking at it. Again, I'm a big baseball fan, and when the Jays won, and then our little run for 2 years, I can't say enough about, you know, our coaching staff with Pat Burns and management, Cliff Fletcher, Bill Waters, and teammates. It's just a fun ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Brotherhood, right?
Great times.
Oh, big time.
Great times, Doug. I was going to ask you, you know, how many times a week do you still get asked about the Gretzky high stick?
Well, every banquet I go to and different things, and don't forget, I've been to a lot of banquets with Cujo.
Right.
Okay. He goes, first thing, that wraparound goal. He goes, you know, he scored a lot more goals than just that one. And then you got the Kerry Fraser situation. And, you know, I felt bad for Kerry because, you know, he had death threats and stupid stuff that there's also 2 linesmen there. And I know the rules at the time were if the ref didn't see it, the linesman saw it, well, Gretzky's out of the game. And 5 minutes. I can honestly tell you guys, if referees make mistakes, and we all do, and everything else, but I look back at it, it's like, you know what? The linesman could have just said, Kerry, just say you saw it. So blame the linesman over the referee, because there's one referee. And when you look back at the whole situation, like during COVID, I've never watched that game ever in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the game. I was so pissed off how bad Kerry was the whole game. and it's something that, you know, as a player, you go through it. I don't want to watch that anymore. But when we're stuck at home in COVID and I watch it, it's like, oh, my God.
It was on. I
wasn't even pissed off at the high stick. I was pissed off at the whole game. So, but it was, you know, it was fun to watch. And, you know what, when you're sitting at home and your kids are with you too, and years before at the cottage, they'd watch the game. My boys would say to me, "What are the rules?" It's like, well, tripping, somewhat sloshing, and then but the hooking is like, yeah, it's like water skiing behind a 5-horse Merc, and for me as a small player, it's like it was hard. So the more you had the puck and they had to chase you, the better it was and the easier it was.
When you see guys that really fly out there now, like Conor McDavid, does it just amaze you at the level of athleticism that this generation, specifically him being elite, has?
Well, I had an opportunity to be with him when he was about 12 years old. Our kids went to the same school, and it was at peak and his hockey thing. And when they played the other schools, Conor played one period and it was probably 12-4. And then he'd get undressed and leave and let the other kids play. So that's how skilled he was. And what I don't know if you've ever seen his dad play, but
never seen his dad play.
Well, look his dad up because his dad had skill.
He could fly, right?
Oh yeah, and hands. And so again, I was blessed to watch my boys play and watch Conor. The Subans were there, and it was just amazing to see the development of all these kids. And again, I spent 10 years in Kingston with the Frontenacs and got to see every different thing and good kids. And I'm going to tell you one thing about the OHL, which I love, is what the kids that do not make it, which is, that's their dream. I get it. But they take their school package and they make themselves a great living. And to this day, I love it. And it's rewarding because the hardest thing was, guys, as being a GM, was cutting a kid that they had their dreams. I know it's reality, but they had dreams too. And it sucks.
The last time I saw you, Doug, was I think it was your last year with Kingston, and it was Eric Lindros charity tournament. It was for Easter Seals. We were doing out in Oshawa.
Yep.
And I always think about seeing you behind the bench, and I think you were GM at that time. Is there a part of you now that misses that? Is there you got that itch to get back there and be involved in the game that way, or are you happy with the way you're involved with the game now?
You know what? If there was a perfect situation to go back, I would do it, but that's like 1%. And I enjoy what I do now. I'm home, go to Leaf games and do a lot of charity work. And so, do I really want to get back on the road and travel crazy? No, not really. So again, I was blessed to play a game, guys. And now obviously I'm on with you guys, and respect is the biggest thing. Respect people to respect you back, and it's something that I'll never forget. I was blessed to play a great game. Yes, you had to compete, you had to work hard, but it's I'm a fan. More important, I'm a fan.
There's exciting games to watch, exciting players, definitely in this city too. And Doug, you were one of the most exciting and entertaining. So appreciate you coming on, telling some old stories, and enjoy the rest of the summer, my friend.
Brandon, Dave, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug.
Doug Gilmour. There we go. I didn't know in the pandemic that he finally watched the game. I think a lot of people watch some old games, but I wouldn't have expected that that's one that he'd shelved for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what? They're just going to keep pumping this down our throats, these old games. I'm going to set the PVR. I'm sitting down to watch this one.
The pandemic is a blur, but I do remember I wrote about that game. I think we were writing about like the greatest, the most,
talked about games of the past,
the most noteworthy moments in Toronto sports history. So we were just making up projects because there was no other games to cover other than Russian ping pong, which was huge.
Belarusian Premier League,
That's
Dave.
right.
You didn't give it enough shine.
That's
I saw you ignore it.
But I do remember talking to Doug about that, and he went on at length about his distaste for Kerry Fraser's refereeing, let alone on the famous missed high stick, but many other calls that he did not like. And man, it's you look back at that era, and they were that close, man. Like they
were so close.
It's 1993. I mean, if they could have got to a cup final, it would have been Toronto, Montreal in the Cup final.
Legendary.
It just could have been what could have been. You understand why Doug looks at it, with a healthy bit of nostalgia now. But these guys are competitive, and it's still got to irk you a little bit that you came that close, and yet for reasons that were not necessarily your fault, you didn't get there.
And then to get so close again the next year, and to run up against Vancouver, who felt like a team of destiny.
Yeah.
How amazing would a Rangers Leafs Stanley Cup final would have been. The idea of the Leafs playing in the West too is just insane. Like the amount of travel that they had to go through. Obviously, there was a few less teams at that time, but it's wild, right? It feels like an anomaly. Like,
they didn't charter, as Doug was saying. They didn't charter at that point. I think they weren't too far away from chartering, but the first teams weren't chartering until the early '90s. Mostly, I think it was the Detroit Pistons started that trend in the early '90s.
Did they? The Bad Boys started it.
Yeah. Their owner bought him a plane, and then everybody slowly kind of fell into line on that, but it wasn't like industry standard for quite some time.
Standards are very different now.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoy talking 90s hockey with Doug Gilmour. We'll talk a little 90s baseball with Brett Boone. Stick around. This is OverDrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. This is OverDrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. My name is Brendan Dunlop. Happy to be filling in for Brian Hayes this week. Very happy to be alongside someone I always enjoy reading in the Toronto Star, and now I've had a few hours to talk with you. We'd only ever done 2 podcasts together, and now here we are with back-to-back 3-hour radio shows, my friend.
That's right, those odd-hour Olympic podcasts we did. Yeah, it was like late for me and early for you.
It would have been, middle of the night. Was it 14 hours, Tokyo?
Yeah, something like that.
14 hours.
It's the other side of the world, roughly.
Man, and here we are. I guess it would be exactly a year from now. Mm-hmm. We'll be in another Olympic cycle in Paris.
Yeah. Crazy.
July again, right?
I believe that's right.
Time is just flying. Certainly is. And the sports world has changed a lot since you and I were doing those Olympic shows with Tokyo. And the golf world has changed completely in the last year. Joining us now on the Maple Toyota hotline is TSN golf reporter Bob Weeks. Bob, welcome to OverDrive. How are you?
Good to be here. Yeah, very good. Very good.
Great to chat with you. There's obviously a lot to talk about in the golf world, a lot to talk about this week as we saw the Senate hearing yesterday. And I'm very curious, Bob, to know what your biggest takeaways from that and what the framework might look like here.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I would say that there were some interesting takeaways, more so in the documents that the Senate prepared. There was a 275-page memorandum that they handed out that I went through last night. And in the early days when they were negotiating this deal, there were proposals on both sides. The PIF people asking for Rory and Tiger to be owners of teams in LIV and to play 10 events a year on LIV, and for Yasir Al-Rumayyan, who is the head of the Public Investment Fund and one of the guys who's really behind all this. He's a crazy golf lover, but he also controls the $700 billion Public Investment Fund. He wanted memberships at Augusta National and the R&A. And then the PGA Tour countered by saying, we want Greg Norman fired more or less immediately from his role at running LIV. So there was a lot of that back and forth.
Right.
But the biggest takeaway is that there's not a lot that they've actually done. They've really only agreed that they will make an agreement. And that's kind of where it stands right now. And I think there's still as many questions to be answered, if not more, as there were before this and there are after.
Bob, where does this leave Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour? We heard Jordan Spieth commenting today, I think speaking for many PGA Tour players over at the Scottish Open, saying he's got a lot of trust to earn back because a lot of players felt blindsided by this bombshell that dropped, I guess, about a month ago, and he's been on a medical leave since. What do you make of his situation and the tenuousness thereof?
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. He's back back at the job next Monday, and you're right. And all the players that I have talked to. I mean, this all came down at the Tuesday of the Canadian Open, and players were livid. I mean, I've never seen so many irate players walking out of that players meeting. These guys are usually either disinterested or very low key, and most of them were really hot about what was going on. So, and I can understand, Jay came out in defense of the PGA Tour and slammed the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. He said, made all these statements about the 9/11 contacts with the Saudis and all these different things. And then basically, without even their consent or anything, turned his back and said, okay, now we're in bed with these guys. And I understand why he's doing it because, listen, they're going to spend these billions of dollars anyway. So you're either with them or you're not. That was kind of Rory's, I think, take after he kind of calmed down from the first part of it. It's not easy to swallow, but I think the players feel that they've been let down because this is supposed to be a player-driven organization, and the players knew nothing about it prior to the announcement on that Tuesday.
Right. I mean, it's so hard to process when you see what the last year was, the fights, just not being on the same page, and now to try and figure out a way to run golf together. You mentioned there some of the demands back and forth where they were just trying to top each other with perhaps outlandish demands, and that Greg Norman fired on day one immediately is one of the demands on one side of it. Where do you think this all stands? Well, he will stand when this is all said and done.
I think eventually he'll be faded out a little bit. The PGA Tour's slant on that is that they're going to say we're going to look after the way they've kind of proposed the structure is the PGA Tour would run everything, and there would be, I don't know if you call it live golf, but there will be some sort of a team element. That's one of the things that's in the documentation that they've got here, but they don't need Greg Norman to run that anymore. So they're gonna spin it as, well, we've got people who can run golf in our office here in Florida. We don't need Greg Norman anymore. But obviously there's been some harsh words between Greg Norman, Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour, and Greg Norman is a very polarizing guy. There's a lot of people who do not like Greg Norman, Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy being at the top of that list. So I think if this is going to come together in some kind of form, they're going to have to try and either squeeze him out or kick him out, one or the other.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating story, Bob. I mean, I know it's very difficult to get any sense of what golf is going to look like once this thing gets sorted out. But is there speculation among the tour players? Like, are guys starting to speculate about how this can go? Is there a feeling that the idea that this is essentially a super monopoly and that will come into the view of the regulators and maybe get this deal squashed? Or what's your kind of gut feel about how this might end up?
Listen, after listening to those hearings yesterday, I don't think there's any 100% guarantee that this thing will come off. But if it doesn't, golf is going to look very disjointed. And if it does, I think it'll have big sections. It'll look a lot more like Formula One than it'll look like the PGA Tour. There will be a slew of world tournaments. There will be probably fewer tournaments. There will be some team golf because that's what the PIF wants, and they're putting up a lot of money. Whether that looks like live and there's teams like there are in Formula One or not, I'm not sure. But I think if you are a really good player right now, you're going to make out a lot better. The purses are going to be higher. The possibility to earn more money is going to be there. And if you are a run-of-the-mill, let's say you're 200th on the money list right now, you might be in trouble. You might be saying, well, where am I going to play next year? But for most of the guys right now, it's sort of that's the biggest problem is they don't know what's going to happen next year, if anything. I honestly think next year will probably be basically something going on like this year, and then it'll be in 25 when they put in all the changes. But if it was put it in our shoes, if someone said to you, okay, well, we're going to completely change over the media industry, but we're not going to tell you how you're going to do it or what you're going to do or when you're going to do it until maybe a year from now, it would be a little bit dispiriting, I think.
In some ways, Bob, it's been that way, but I know your point. I know exactly.
That's a little too close to home, Bob.
No, I get it. Great analogy. You did bring up one that I was going to. You took it to motorsport. The Honda Indy Toronto rolls into Toronto this weekend. IndyCar went through about 20 years ago now a split of power and ideas. It was mid-'90s actually when CART and the Indy Racing League separated and thought they could run two series. The IRL ran on ovals. They thought they were doing it the right way. CART ran on these road courses, and they tried to keep the old values of IndyCar. The IRL had the Indy 500, but CART still had the best guys. And then it wasn't sustainable. You can't run two kind of premier circuits the same. And I don't know if actually IndyCar has recovered from that, even though they've merged and it's been successful. We still have events in Toronto and in all these major places. Do you think that golf, like how long maybe the effects of this will we see in the sport? Because it did seem like golf was on a good trajectory, but in a rocky place potentially. And this to me just feels as though it's going to set the sport back like a decade.
Yeah, very easily could, and I think that's in some reasons why they're trying to get together. The other side of it really is, the PIF has so much money. They're going to outspend you, and they're going to just sit there and wait for the tour to run out of money. And that's one of the reasons why they agreed, in part, to do this, is because they were paying tens of millions of dollars in legal fees to their lawyers for all these cases that were going before the courts. And I mean, for the public investment fund, that's like money they find in their couch cushions.
Right.
So you can't really battle with the guy who's got all the money, because you're going to lose. And so I think the PGA Tour realized this was a real existential threat to the existence of the PGA Tour. And I think they said, look, let's get on board with them. We better work with them and rather than against them.
So, Bob, the fourth and final major coming up, the Scottish Open this week. And, of course, next week they'll be at Royal Liverpool Golf Club to play the Open Championship. Last time it was there, it was Rory McIlroy that won the Open in 2014. Tiger Woods won it there in 2006. Who are you picking?
I really feel like the stars are kind of lining up for Rory. I mean, I felt so bad for him at the U.S. Open, just couldn't finally catch Wyndham Clark down the stretch. He's been close so many times. I think he's had 19 top tens since he won at Royal Liverpool, which is his last. Well, actually, it wasn't his last major win because he won the PGA that year, which was in August as well. But, his game right now is really not showing any signs of weakness on any level. He's turned away, commenting on the first part to bring it into the second part of the questions here. He's basically stopped answering questions that don't have anything to do with golf. He just wants to focus solely on golf, not get distracted, and I don't blame him. But I do think his game is in the position right now where he could win this championship. He likes links golf. Weather's supposed to be kind of crummy, so he doesn't mind that either. So I really like his chances. But I mean, there's so many good players this year. Right now, it's crazy. I mean, Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm, and you can go down the list. But any one of those guys could turn it on.
Give me one guy. John Rahm was someone that I always feel like when I am interested or I get sucked into one of the pools, John Rahm is the guy I go with, and then he chooses that week and have a bad weekend. But to be honest, it's probably more on me than him.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he's played pretty well this year as well. Then the other part is you got the whole live guys, and we sort of don't really know what's going on. We underestimated Brooks Koepka, and then he wins the PGA Championship. Cam Smith is the defending champion at the Open Championship. He won the last live golf tournament. So there's lots of opportunities here to try and find the right guy. It's just I'm not sure which one is going to be that one, but I really do feel that this might be Rory's turn.
I believe it's with the Canadian contingent is two guys. Am I right, Bob? Corey Connors and Nick Taylor?
Yeah, Adam Hadwin is the second alternate. I texted him the other night, and he said if he gets to the first alternate, he'll go over there. So he's hoping for some pulled hammies and a few bad backs here this week, and then he'll play. Yeah,
and what do you make of the two guys that are in? We know Taylor's maybe coming down off the hangover of the greatest moment in Canadian golf history that's on Canadian soil, at least. What do you make of the chances of Taylor and Connors?
Well, Connors has played well in the past here. He's never had 4 good rounds together, but most of the time, he's a pretty consistent player. He's been a little off at times this year, but I think he's playing pretty well. Nick is having a career year. I mean, he's over $5 million in earnings this year. Got a couple of, I think he's got 6 or 7 top 10 finishes, including that win. I think there was a little bit of downtime he needed after that win. He had a baby like 3 weeks before as well, so there was a lot going on in his world for the last little bit. But he's over playing this week at the Scottish Open, and he'll play obviously next week in the Open Championship. I'm not sure what to make of that. He hasn't played a lot over there, but they're both really good players and having decent seasons, so you never know.
Bob, I had a baby boy 4 months ago, and I've never scored as many goals in men's co-ed league soccer or men's hockey than I have since he's been around. So I tell you, that's the boost. That's it.
There you
go.
The
baby boost, Bob.
Nobody got tackled after you scored those goals, though, right? Like nobody was trying to douse you with champagne and.
No, it's not that. It's not. We don't do that in D division. Co-ed 7 aside. No, one of these days I'll get promoted into the higher class, Bob, where I'll get that. But this was a pleasure, Bob. Thanks so much for coming on and talking golf with us. Enjoy the week and enjoy the golf to come.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob Weeks joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. Check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. seeing what LIV and the PGA will look like, I honestly feel, and I give the IndyCar IRL example, it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
There's so much more, I think, animosity, and it was personal. It was heated back in the day for that. But this is the money. It's just so different. These guys that turned their back or were perceived to have turned their back on the PGA to go and just take the cash, and now they've got this cash and they're going to come and play the same events they were playing before. Like I don't know how you smooth over a lot of those tensions.
Oh, there's so much complexity to this thing. I mean, and there's so much misinformation. You don't even know which ends up because, I was there at the Canadian Open when this whole thing was coming out, and there was so much confusion among the players. There was this idea that, you heard the gloating on social media, or you saw the gloating on social media from the LIV guys, Phil Mickelson and the rest of them sort of saying, ha, 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 guess we made the right choice because we're going to get our money and we're going to be coming back, fellas.
Right.
And then there was all this, animosity that you're pointing out from the PGA Tour players who were loyal to the tour saying, wait a second, that can't happen. Those guys can't get all that money and then just come back like nothing happened.
Right.
Right. And then you look at this treasure trove of documents that Bobby Weeks was talking about with connected to the Senate hearings. And it's like when you look at some of the proposals, and indeed the proposal from the PIF, the Saudi pile of money that is, wanting to disrupt the golf industry, they're saying, hey, let's have Tiger and Rory own LIV teams and let's have them play in LIV. So the idea that this was going to squash out LIV, as many were suggesting, doesn't seem to be the plan from the Saudi side, and yet the idea that the PGA Tour is going to not have a mutiny on its hands if it allows LIV to carry on or be bolstered or allow the LIV players to come back, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And to your point, I'm not sure there's an easy fix.
No, I don't think there is. And you look in an individual sport like this as well, the personalities, the egos, it does actually make it, I don't say a lot more complicated, but certainly more layered. It's when PIF wants to buy an NFL team.
Yeah.
And those guys who are on the way out, like, Jerry Jones, and he's obviously built a lot, wants to leave a legacy, of course, but you're telling me if $10 billion is on the table, that someone like that, is not considering it or thinking about the future in a way where it's just going to happen anyway. Why continue to stand in the way?
Look, right now the NFL rules, you got to have essentially have to have a singular owner for the majority stake of the franchise. But we just saw the NBA just tweaked the rule that said suddenly you could have 20% ownership of funds, essentially, whether it be pension funds or sovereign wealth funds of oil-rich Arab nations.
Right.
Right. And so that's one tweak. The rules can be changed, right? If there's overwhelming amounts of money that want to come into the system, I have a feeling, like just in this case, we thought, well, they can't possibly do business with these guys. They're doing business with these guys. And I'm not sure why any other sport would be immune to doing business with these guys, because the money, as Rory McIlroy pointed out, they're either going to be your enemy or they're going to be your friend. And when they've got an essentially bottomless pit of money on which to draw on, you'd rather they be your friend.
Money has a way of changing rules, doesn't it? Certainly does.
Yep.
This is Overdrive, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Lots more to come on Overdrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. You are listening to Overdrive on TSN, but my name is Brendan Dunlop, and I'm alongside Dave Feschuk today. It is ESPYs Wednesday night. Monday is Home Run Derby Day. Tuesdays, MLB All-Star Game Day. This is award show night. And when it comes to hockey, or the NHL award, like why even parade everybody out there? Why even let the other guys dress up? Just give Connor the trophy, right? It's going to McDavid.
So there's 4 nominees for best NHL player at the ESPYs tonight, Brendan.
Just to follow protocol. On paper, there's 4 nominees.
There's David Pastrnak of the Bruins. There's
good season.
Linus Ullmark of the Bruins. 2 Bruins.
Good season.
There is Jonathan Marchessault of the Vegas Golden Knights.
Great season.
The reigning Conn Smythe Trophy winner. And then there's this guy named Conor McDavid, who is the presumptive winner, as you point out, rightly.
Mm-hmm.
And there really is no point in even mentioning the other 3 names, other than to just give him a pat on the back and say, you're playing for second place.
It's to let them have a night. It's nice to get all dolled up.
Yeah.
I've worn a jacket 3 days in a row. I haven't done that for a while.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'd go to the ESPYs if I got nominated. It's a fun show. Like, I guess it's going to not be as fun tonight because there's no host because of the writer's strike, apparently. The Hollywood writers are all on strike.
Sure.
So no comedy writing allowed.
Wow. There was no one
jokes.
in house in the sporting landscape. There wasn't
like
someone.
a union rule. Like you can't, if you're gonna, put on a show, you can't have comedy writers because they're unionized. So.
I'm just surprised that in the space in which that they operate, that there isn't a way to get someone to just find the most personable athlete and hire a friend to write some jokes.
I don't know. It's gonna work.
And we talk about this all the time, man. The personalities are different in sports now. I guess that says it all. Couldn't actually get anyone from the sports landscape. I guess that's it, though. They couldn't write for a SportsCenter host. Couldn't get Kenny Mayne doing it.
I don't know.
It's their brand. They've bought the day. They've bought the whole awards show. Well, we'll watch it tonight. You are watching OverDrive on TSN 2, listening on TSN 1050 and the iHeartRadio app. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.